I was whisked away the morning after the spring festival in the sleepy little fishing village I was currently calling home, or at least what was passing as a home during the aforementioned festivities, where a young man with skills with a lute and a warm song is much more well received than other times of year. Since the festivities were over, I knew I would soon be moving on to the next town, but just didn't expect to be removed so quickly and violently from my temporary home, and what passed in that town for the local eatery slash bar slash inn slash I believe I saw someone making shoes there once. Either way, next thing I know, I found myself knocked atop the head and awoke bound, gagged, and blindfolded in what was clearly the back of a cart. The cart wasn't very clean. The smell of chicken livings and damped hay was, looking back, probably what woke me. Sadly, that wasn't the first time I found myself in similar situations. I was confident I could break my restraints, should I deem it necessary, but something told me I was safe and unharmed, so I didn't press the issue. Some friends that I've made on the way said I was too trusting, but things just always seem to work out. I mean, sure, I've had to move, but I've always made the best of what I've found, even in situations like these. Take these bonds my young self finds himself in. He has not been trained by a single thieves' guild, nor army how to get out of such a knot, but nevertheless confident that he could slip them if the need arose. Of course it did not, for I was correct in my original assumption. If my kidnappers wanted me dead, I would already be so. Eventually, our journey ended at what could only be described as a large collection of mostly outdoor spaces. White marble pillars and statues of people I didn't recognize created an illusion of rooms to this mostly outdoor space. Not realizing it at the time, I should have noticed the architecture and layout of these gardens, fountains, and art was more than just beautiful. It was intentional. Sound seemed to carry inordinately far within the confines of the space, so much so that I think that even the most subtle of pickpockets would find themselves quickly found. I was brought to a group of men and women of many different races. There I stood before them expecting something, anything, but they just seemed to watch me, most of them stopping what they were doing, either eating or playing extraordinary, intricate instruments. Eventually, a kind, portly satyr explained to me my situation. I had caused quite the stir in the small fishing village, so much so that the part at college I now find myself in took notice. Apparently, some of the local folk realized that when they were around me and my playing, their back pain eased, the sharp sting of old war wounds of the veterans lessened, and apparently a scraped knee of a child healed right before everyone's very eyes. This, it seemed, was odd to the villagers who saw it, but not to me, not in the slightest. I thought music could always do that. The warm, knowing smile of the fat satyr said more than any words could. It would seem this was a tale he heard many times, but never tired of. In the years since, I have heard similar stories as well. And I've given the young bard the same smile old Cyrus gave me all those years ago, as I told my first tale as a bard. I thank you all for listening to my story. This is Matthew with Bardling's Banter, and that was a reading of a short story I just wrote for this episode. On a personal note, I'd like to dedicate that short story to my son Marlo. Hey buddy, I hope you always find magic in song. Getting on with the episode of How to Spell, obviously this episode today is about the Bard class. I wrote that short story to kind of illustrate how a Bard finds his power. I imagine that in your first couple of levels, i.e., level 1 and 2, before you specialize and go to your bardic college, you might not even really know you're a bard. I, of course, invite anyone who chooses to make a bardic character to use what you heard as part of your backstory, but don't think that that is the only way bards become bards. So most people you find playing at bars and inns and magical worlds aren't bards. They're singers, dancers, the like. Bards are special. Bards are beings and creatures who have found the magic in song and human emotion. Most, not all, but a lot of them have connections to the Feywild. Some, like some of the Dragonborn, have a connection to what I like to call the Song of Creation, the song that was used when their god created the multiverse, so they say. But like with anything, the limitation is just your imagination. Maybe your bard knew they were a bard from the moment they were born. Getting into the mechanical aspect, as I said, that video was really taking you through what a bard might look like their first couple of levels before they go to their college. So level 1 and level 2, all they really have as far as skills are bardic inspiration, as well as what's called the Song of Rest, which is, in the story, what he used to heal the villagers. Additionally, they also have a skill called Jack of all trades, which mechanically looks like they are able to add half of their proficiency score to skills they are not proficient in. Keep in mind that also includes initiative rolls, because those are skill checks. So that can be handy. So what that would look like in game is kind of your bard is, like he said, good at things that he's never been trained in. Just slightly better than your average person. As I mentioned right away, you get bardic inspiration, which I've mentioned on every video that I've ever made on this channel. You can inspire others through stirring words or music. To do so, you use a bonus action on your turn to choose one creature other than yourself within 60 feet of you who can hear you. That creature gains 1 bardic inspiration die. At low levels, this is a d6. It goes all the way up to a d12. Once within the next 10 minutes, the creature can roll the die and add it to the ability check, attack roll, or saving throw it makes. The creature can wait until after it rolls the d20 before deciding to use the bardic inspiration die, but must decide before the DM says whether or not the roll was successful or a failure. So, in simple terms, you inspire your team to do better. You give them a d6 to add to any attack roll or ability check they make within the next 10 minutes in game. Realize in combat that can be a lot more than 10 minutes in reality. There are many subclasses for the bard. Mostly they change the way your bardic inspiration works. Some allow you to take your bardic inspiration die, giving it to an opponent's roll against them, defending themselves or attacking one of your allies. Meaning, if your opponent rolls to attack, they subtract your bardic inspiration. This is called cutting words. Reviewing very quickly the mechanics for Song of Rest. Essentially, while your team is on a short rest, you as a bard can play a song, and that helps with your team's recovery, adding extra dice as they roll to heal. Bards are another of what I call an intuitive magic class, meaning they innately know magic as they level up. They don't have to physically learn things such as the wizard. At first level, you know 2 cantrips, and you have 2 first level spell slots. You know 4 spells. Your cantrips increase like most other classes at 4th and 10th level. Additionally, you're able to learn an additional spell at each level, and again, that kind of that follows that rule until 10th level, and then it changes. And once again, like all of this, we've talked before, look at the table at your leisure in the player's handbook to get an idea of their spell slot progression. Bards are a support class, but they're able to fill many different roles as the need arises. They are, in my opinion, probably the most difficult class to play well. I say that because playing a bard well doesn't mean you just damage your opponent. You have to think out of the box and learn and really get into the mechanics of how your spells work to achieve the best result, because it's not as simple as, does that hit? Good. Okay, take 10 damage. Some people try to play it that way, and they use, their favorite cantrip seems to be Vicious Mockery, which is, exactly that. Basically, you insult someone so badly they take damage, which, okay, fine, that's funny. But there's so much, more effective things to be doing with a bard. I personally, whenever I play a bard, I don't even take that cantrip because there's just so many better things I could be doing with my time, such as using prestidigitation to turn off all of the wall sconces in a room so that the thief can come in and steal the keys from the guard. There are much better things for a bard to be doing than just trying to damage your opponent. As time goes on, you'll learn how to use a bard most effectively, but it's very easy to fall into the trap of, well, bards are just a really weak class. They're not. They're probably the strongest class in D&D if you know how to use them correctly. That does it for this episode of Learn to Spell Bard Edition. That actually does it for the full casters. Next up, we're getting into Paladins, Rangers, and Arcane Trickster Rogues, so look forward to that. Until next time, this has been Matthew wishing you all 1d10 worth of inspiration.